Hey, Sensei here, and we're now going to take a look at our code of conduct for students and members. Now, this is a list of rules that are going to be required for our students to make sure they can grow to the best of their ability whilst ensuring they are safe and they promote the true values of martial arts. Let's take a look at the first rule. Never attempt any technique or move that you have not been shown by an instructor. So never attempt any technique at all that you've never been shown by an instructor. And the reason this is really, really important, we want to make sure that you're as safe and as happy as possible. If you do a technique and you do it wrong and you've never been shown it by an instructor, you could risk injury or harming yourself or someone else. We don't want that to happen. We want it to be as safe as possible. If you want to learn a technique that is way above your ability or whatnot, you can come and ask us. If we think you're able to take it on, we will help you. That's our job. Okay, so don't try and push yourself further than you already are unless you have instructor support. Okay, we don't mind you wanting to grow fast. We don't mind you wanting to progress and learn some really amazing things. Just make sure you speak to the instructor team so we can guide you every step of the way to make sure you don't get injured, you don't hurt yourself, and you learn it properly so you don't actually develop those bad habits. Rule number 2 is junior students never be late for lessons. There's a reason for this. When we actually have lessons, we have a structured process in which we take all our students through. We start off by warming them up and getting their bodies ready for the exercise and the martial arts training we're going to be putting them through. We then get them through a stretch which is going to help reduce the chance of injury even further. Now you can imagine if a junior student arrives late to class, it means they're going to miss the warm-up and miss the stretch. Now where possible, if they do arrive late and we have instructor team members available, we will get them to run them through a warm-up and a stretch before they can join in the class properly. But let's just say there isn't anyone available. They're turning up and because they're not warm, they haven't been stretched, there is a chance that they could get injured. And if that happens, there's not very much more we can do because we've obviously already run those key parts in our classes. However, we do understand that obviously these things can happen and people do run late, and we do also allow for adults to warm and stretch themselves as long as they're competent to do so. So if you're an adult member and you're running a bit late, you can warm and stretch yourself and get yourself on the mat. Okay, but juniors, where possible, we really, really request you try not to be late to any lessons because we can ensure we cover everything they need so they have a successful lesson. Rule number 3 is very simple. Never abuse or misuse any of the punching or kicking equipment or any of the equipment we have here at KRMA. They all have a specific task. Okay, we want them to last a long time because a lot of them cost a lot of money. And we want to make sure that as we're a non-profit school, we want to make sure that all the equipment stays as pristine as possible for as long a time as possible so you can get the most benefit out of it as students. So don't climb on kick bags and punch bags, it's not what they're for, okay? Don't use any equipment in a derogatory way because it's going to damage them quicker and it means that we're not going to have them for as long, okay? Plus, people can fall off equipment and they can get hurt themselves, and that's not what we want to happen at all. We want this to be an environment of growth, not an environment of injury. So, please make sure you look after your equipment and use them for their intended purpose. Rule number 4 is never use bad language or shout or scream at KRMA. Very, very simple. We want to use what we call the Disney code of language, which means we want to be kind, courteous and polite at all times. Okay, there will be times where we'll do what are called key eyes, which are a method of shouting, but what we mean by not shouting is shouting at each other or being derogatory towards any other members of the team or to the members of the student base. We want to make sure everyone is friendly, kind and compassionate at all times. Because if we know we can instill those values in our students and our members, that going outside of our school, they're going to actually have that exact same approach in their everyday lives. Which means they're going to be much nicer people, they're going to develop better, they're going to grow more. And that's what we want from them. So it's a very, very simple rule. Okay, we want to make sure that all of our students are nice, kind, caring people. Rule number 5 is never eat or chew anything during a lesson. We have a no food and drink rule on the mats and we want to make sure we enforce that. Now the reason why though is because food is a choking hazard. That's the most important one. We don't want any students to choke while they're training. That would be crazy, okay? We want everyone to be happy while they're on the mats, not having these really, really nasty experiences. Plus, getting food and drink on the mats means that people are going to tread on them. That's going to reduce their enjoyment of the lesson. And we've all trod in food before and gone, oh, that's disgusting. So we want to make sure that it's a clean, positive environment for training in. Rule number 6 is always wear your full uniform unless you're given express permission not to. So we have a very strict uniform policy at KRMA because we're a martial arts school and discipline is the ability to follow the rules. And our rules are very simple. If you're training in martial arts at our school, you must wear the full uniform. During summer months, we do have a summer uniform, which means a club t-shirt and our shorts, but it must only be KRMA approved uniform. And during outside of summer period, you must wear your full uniform once again. Okay, this is not up for discussion. It is literally our policy, and we want to make sure all students abide by it to make sure everyone is on the same footing when they're on the mat. We want everyone to have the exact same opportunities. Number 7, we ask you to always remove all jewellery before you start classes. And the reason why is it's actually in the interest of safety. If you have rings, earrings, or any other jewellery, the last thing you want to happen is for them to get damaged or for them to actually injure you or another person. Okay, it's not always just about us, it's also about the people that we're training with. Okay, rings could cut people, earrings can get pulled out, and that's a horrible experience for anyone that experiences it or goes through it. So we ask all students to remove all jewellery before the classes starts, and in instances where they can't be removed, we ask them to be taped up to reduce as much of the risk as possible. Number 9, all we ask is that during warm-up sessions, you don't overtalk the instructor or don't talk while the instructor is actually coaching. And the reason this is very, very important, you might miss key information that's going to be useful to you actually developing. We might be telling you something that's actually a safety notice. So it may be we're telling you to do a new stretch or a new warm-up that you must do a certain way to avoid injury. If you're talking, you may not hear that, which means you may get injured, which then is no longer our fault. Not only that, your talking may mean that other people may miss that information too, and that's not fair either. So during warm-ups, etc., we want you to try and make sure you're paying attention to the instructor team as much as you can to get the most benefit out of that part of the session. Number 9, never talk while an instructor is talking. Very important rule. Number 1, it's because it's rude and we don't want our students to grow up not using their manners. That's a really important factor in martial arts. We want all our students to have good, strong, solid manners. But at the same point in time, for the exact same reason as rule number 8, you may miss critical information. Okay, we don't want that to happen. We need to learn and grow as much as possible. So by always being focused and listening, you're going to get the most out of the lesson possible and you're going to continue to grow quicker. Rule number 10, no electronic devices or additional stuff is allowed on the mats or to be used by students during class time. And the reason that is because it causes distractions. Okay, there may be instances where we allow our team to grab mobile phones, etc. And that might be for the purpose of filming or photographing, etc. But not for anything else. Once they're done, they must put those away. And it's the exact same for our students. No electronic devices or anything else on the mat except for themselves, their uniform, and them ready to go. Number 11, and this is really important, never show any levels of aggression towards any other member at KRMA. It's really important we want to learn to have what's called emotional intelligence and emotional growth. We understand that sometimes we may get frustrated or angry, but we should never express that towards another person. We may express that we're frustrated and we understand that and we'll help you through those emotions, but you should never get angry and aggressive towards other members of KRMA at all. Okay, that's not okay. We need to make sure we can control that. So if you ever feel like you are really aggravated or grumpy, come and talk to us. We'll help you through it, help you understand it, and help you continue to grow. Number 12. Never argue with a member of the instructor team, no matter who they are, okay? They can be a lower grade than you or higher grade than you, but if they're a member of our instructor team, you do not argue with them at any point in time. It's a critical rule, okay? It's about hierarchy and respecting people's positions and what they've achieved and what they've earned. Just like for you, if you're a higher grade, people should show that level of respect for you, okay? And there are better ways of dealing with things if you don't necessarily agree with what's being discussed. But at the times you're being asked to do something by a member of the instructor team, the best thing to do is to get on with it, do it, and then discuss it later, not during the class. Number 13, and this is a really important one, always show respect to anyone who holds a higher grade than you. It doesn't matter what art they're in, okay? It really doesn't matter. If they hold a higher grade than you, you should always show higher grades a higher level of respect because they've put the work in, they've achieved it, they've graded towards it. And even if they're younger than you, they still hold a higher rank than you, and that is important. We should respect the ranking system. Number 14, this is a really important safeguarding rule, but any children under the age of 10 shouldn't be left at KRMA on their own. Now, we understand sometimes this is not possible, but what we do ask is where possible, any parents of children under the age of 10 should try and remain at the classes, watch what their children are doing so you can actually understand what skills we're trying to teach them, okay? Now, we know it's not always possible. You may be dropping one child off here and then going somewhere else, and we understand that. So in instances where that happens, and we do understand it, they should never be left alone at KRMA with just a single instructor. It's a safeguarding rule. Okay, we don't allow one instructor with one student at any point in time. There should at least be two instructors or at least two other people in the two people in the building with a student. So there's always a level of safeguarding in place. So please just bear that in mind. So if you've booked a private lesson or something like that, okay, if your child is under the age of 10, okay, we ask that you stay in the building with that instructor and the student. Okay, it's really important. It's just a safeguarding principle, and even for children over the age of 10, it's sometimes a really good thing to consider as well. So what happens if the rules are breached? Well, that's really important. We have a full disciplinary process that we follow to ensure that our students have an understanding of consequence to actions, because it's really important that they understand if they break a rule, there is a consequence to it, but at the same point in time, the consequence will directly impact the issue that was raised. So we're not going to punish them for something that is 6 months prior, okay? Whatever happens, we deal with it, we deal with the disciplinary, and then we move on, and it's done, okay? But we do have a disciplinary procedure, and there'll be a level on this in the course as you go on. As you can see, there are quite a few rules to follow, and these aren't really all of them. There are a lot more, but a lot of them you'll learn as you go along. Now, we also understand that parents and students are going to find all these rules and be like, oh, how do we remember them all? Don't worry, take the time. Okay, we know it's going to take a little while to get used to it, but it's like rules for anywhere, okay? So just have a listen, do your best. That's all anyone can ask you. And if anyone does break a rule, we'll obviously guide them along the way. We're not just going to sit there and be really evil and go, oh, you broke that rule, off you go. It doesn't work that way. Martial arts is about growth and development, and we understand that people are not going to get everything right 100% of the time. We're human beings at the end of the day, and growth is part of what we do. So, hope that helps, and I hope you enjoyed the actual listen to the rule set. Any questions though, please just let us know.